Hello, I am Diego Lizarazo, and this is the fifth video of the Creating Your Own Christmas Game series. Please check the previous ones in case that you have missed something. I'm covering a lot of basics of Constructor. And now what I'm going to do is to detect the collision, to detect when Santa is being hit by one of the gifts, and I'm going to decrease the number of lives. So we add an event here. I'm going to say, I'm going to pick the gift, and I'm going to use the search box to look for collision. So on collision with another object. That's the one that I want. And it's asking me like, hey, which object? I click and pick Santa. So whenever one of the gifts touches Santa, we're going to do something. So add action. Now we're going to figure out what is that something. So we pick system, first time that we use it. So system, double click, and we have a section here just for global variables. So I'm going to use subtract from. So I'm going to pick that. We just have one that is lives, and I'm going to subtract one. So whenever Santa touches one of the gifts, we're going to decrease the lives in one. Okay, so I can run it right now, but we're not going to actually see much because this variable is not represented here. This, what we have in the layout, is what it's visible to us as players. So I'm going to add a small text that is going to show us the number of lives. So I'm going to double click, say text, put it here in the middle. I'm going to call it lives label, and just to make it simpler, I'm going to change the text here on the properties to say lives, I don't know, 3. Okay, maybe this is not the best color, so I'm going to change it for red so it's super visible in the video. You have it here, and I'm going to go back to the event sheet and I'm going to add another event. So add event. System again, it's quite useful. And I'm going to use this one, every tick. So every tick is almost like, well, you have it here, almost always. It's the closest that you are going to have to always. It's not exactly always, but almost. So I'm going to say done. So what do I want to do every tick? I want to change this value, what it's in this lives label, and put what we have here in lives. So if I have 3, it's going to show 3. If I have 2, it's going to show 2. So let's add an action. I'm going to pick lives label, scroll down, and look for set text. Next. So what I wanted to say is like lives space, then ampersand lives. So this is actually the variable, the one that we added here, that's the one. So this one is saying like I'm going to put the, well, you can say like you have this many lives, or you can put any message here, but the important part is this, ampersand lives. So that's going to give us the value that we have here, so done. So now let's run it. So we added 2 events and they should work like you see the lives here. Well, we didn't. Okay, let me run it again so I do it almost from the very beginning. So 2 1 0, so you see that it's kind of like moving there, -2. So but we are going to see that this is kind of like wrong. Well, they are coming back, so -3 -4 -5, so every time is decreasing, which is what we wanted. Okay, so now obviously Santa shouldn't have like -8 lives. We should do something when the lives come down to 0. Okay, so we have to add an event for that. So add event, system, and we can compare variables. So that's what I want to do. The variable is lives, and I'm going to say when is less than, well, less or equal than 0. To say done. And what I want to do is to pause the game, to freeze the game. That is going to be kind of like a game over, right? And I'm actually going to show in the screen game over. So add action, system. I'm going to look for timescale. You have a nice explanation here of how timescale works. So 0 is a pause, so I'm going to put that one. And then I'm going to display a game over text. So I'm going to create that text. So again, double click, text. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to say game over. But well, it's kind of small and it's not a good color with that background that we have. So I'm going to change the color again to red. I guess that you can put whatever color you want, but I'm assuming that this one is going to be quite visible. And I'm going to make it much bigger, 26, maybe even bigger than that. I'm actually going to use the preferred font for apps in the Windows Store, Sago. So I'm going to put it here. Also, you can see that if I run it right now, game over is already visible. It's not what I want. You don't start with game over. But it's because the initial visibility is visible. So I'm going to just say invisible. If I run it at the very beginning, the game over label is not going to be appearing here. And we're going to be able to decide when it's going to be visible. So I'm going to change this, game over. I'm going to rename a couple of things that we haven't renamed. So background, sprite, this one is gift. And it doesn't matter how many times you rename that, all the events are going to adjust to that. And I'm going to change the last event that we were working on, and I'm going to add another action. This is the first time that we're going to have 2 actions, not just one. And I'm going to say the game over, I wanted to set it to visible, so set visible, visible. So now when the lives come down to 0, the game over is going to appear, and the scale is going to, the time scale is going to go to 0, so that's going to pause the game. So let's try that. So I'm going to look for that 0, 0, pop, and that's it. Now I'm not able to move. Well, I'm actually able to mirror this, but the gravity and everything else is not working. So that kind of works. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the lives should be appearing all the time there where on screen. But if I keep going towards the right, the lives disappear. So why is that? That's kind of simple, and it has to do again with the layers. Right now we have 2 layers, one for the background, just to differentiate this, and one for the game that I'm actually going to rename to game. But something like this, like the lives, that should be in its own layer. That's the UI, the user interface, and that should always appear on screen. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to rename it as UI, and the game over and the lives, I'm going to move them to that. So I just go to the properties, UI, game over, UI. But this is still not complete. So we just click on the UI, and you see this property here that it says parallax. That kind of has to do with if I move my camera, if that layer is going to move with the camera or not. So right now it's not saying much, so I'm going to change it to 0,0. So now if I try this and I start moving towards the right, the lives, the label is still moving with me. So I'm never missing that. And also the game over. So I can see that the lives came down to 0 and there is a game over. So that worked perfect. Okay. So we're almost there. I have maybe 1 or 2 more videos before we end this big part of the basics of constructing your own Christmas game. So please stay tuned and well, let me know what you think of the videos.